Hey everybody, welcome to our live sign. This is a very special presentation that we're doing tonight. We're thrilled to have you there. This is really for our friends of the ACLJ as we celebrate the release of our book, Unholy Alliance. You know, oftentimes you go out and you start doing basically book signings in bookstores. Well, this gives us the chance basically to do that right here in our studios, and I'm signing books for you. So the way this is worked, Joseph Williams, one of our associate counsels here at the ACLJ, who's involved in helping get this book together, is going to be pulling questions that you all are asking. When you buy the book, and some of you have already, we're going to be taking questions, taking some calls as well. And I'm going to actually physically sign the books for you. And by the way, we've got it really done nicely. This is a numbered edition. You see in the plate right here, this one, I just pulled this off the stack, was 147 out of the number that we have, which is the most that we'll ever have on this particular series would be 3,000. So you could literally get your limited edition copy. And because you're like us on Facebook or following us on ACLJ or following my Facebook page, part of the ACLJ, we've got a very special offer here. And that is you buy one for the regular price, which is $26.99. It's signed, $27 basically. And then the second book you buy is half price, and it's signed as well. So this is a different way of doing it. We're really excited about this. It's the first time we've used this technology to do this. So we're going to start taking questions. I'm going to start signing some books. We're going to bring in some of our, there's a lot of news going on this afternoon. By the way, we're going to let you know this in just moments. Wes Smith's going to join us. And there has been a confirmation that the attack that ISIS leveled against some of our soldiers did, in fact, include a mustard gas derivative, so it was a chemical attack. We're going to talk about some of that. We talk about a lot of those issues in the book, by the way. So you can share this with your friends as well, but you can also go to buyunholyalliance.com and buy the book if you haven't already done so right now. We want to encourage as many of you as we can to do just that. Buy the book, share it with your friends. When you buy the book, you'll come right back onto the site as soon as you're done, and we encourage you to do that. So, Joseph, we're going to take some questions. I'm going to start signing some books. I'm going to bring Wes in a minute here, but first, I'm going to start signing away, which is what they want me to do. All right.
That sounds great.
If I could find the page that I'm supposed to sign here to make sure I get it right, and there it is.
That makes it just like a real book signing. That's exactly what happens.
This is the real deal, folks. I mean, this is not something we're doing for radio and TV. This is just for you all. Share it with your friends on Facebook. And again, if you buy the book right now, we're going to be signed. Literally, there you go. There you go. Signed. Neatly, I must say. So I'm excited about that. So you go ahead. We got questions already coming in.
Yeah, first question from Russell from Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Kind of a key question for this book is, what is the most effective approach we can take to have our politicians call the war of terror for what it is, a war against radical Islamic terrorists?
Well, two things. Number one, we go through this a lot in the book. You got to call it what it is, which of course is calling it a war, but you got to treat it like a war. I mean, here's what I said the other day, and this some people would say, "Oh, I can't believe he said this." They're at war with us. Okay? They are at war with us. Radical jihadists, and it's not just ISIS. It's ISIS and their related entities. They're at war with us right here in the United States of America. I was in New York. You know, I was just in New York when all this took place with the bombing in New Jersey and then the two in New York. I was in New York City. And I will tell you something. The war is here. I mean, this war is happening. So we may not want to acknowledge that it's happening, but the fact is, the war is actually happening, and there's, as I said, and it's happening here, and it's happening, of course, in the region. But it's serious stuff.
And that's one of the crazy parts about this book is, as you were writing it, you had to keep updating it. So up until it went to print.
Yeah, literally. So we got, we did Nice, you got Orlando, and then at some point because what happened this year differently than before, there would be months and months in between each terror attack. I mean, that's what you all know that. I mean, there was months in between each of these terror attacks, and this time they were coming in pretty rapid succession, and at some point, the book had to go to press, and so we have everything in it up until really these last couple. But look, we're fighting with radical jihadists. The Russians are involved in this now, which is a dangerous scenario, and we've got to realize this is what we're dealing with. And I'm going to keep signing away. But again, it's buy one for $27, which is the retail, and you're getting one at half price. You get the second one half price, and they're both going to be signed. So and it's an exclusive numbered print. So this was number 112. So I'm picking them kind of randomly here, but this is number 112. So we encourage you to do it. It's buyunholyalliance.com. That's buyunholyalliance.com is the easiest way to get the book, and you can order it, literally buy it right now.
That's right. You get signed first editions.
Yep.
Very limited edition. Some of the proceeds from these
go to the
sold
ACLJ.
Books go directly to our work at the ACLJ.
Absolutely. So
a big question that we got a lot after your #1 New York Times bestselling book, Rise of ISIS, which this
nice
is the
plug for
follow-up
Rise of
book
ISIS,
to.
by the way. Thank
Yes. But a question we got was about Sharia law.
Yep.
And so a big part of this book is explaining Sharia law. So Jeff from Pennsylvania asks, is the Sharia component of the Quran make it less of a religion and more of a governing cult?
I call it political Islam. I mean, that's really what you're dealing with here. I mean, it's political Islam. I mean, you can't, does it have a theological component to it? Sure. But it's a political movement, and it's a subversive political movement. And the sooner we recognize that we're dealing with a subversive political movement, the better off we're going to be. Now, Jeff, our politicians right now, do they get it? No. They still think, look, they indicted the guy that did the bombings in New York and New Jersey, okay? And they didn't put in the complaint, the charges, that he had a journal, which is now blood-laden with his blood, that talked about how he was motivated by ISIS. That they leave out because they've got this narrative that goes this way, and this is their narrative. So again, we want to, the reason we wrote the book and included the history of Sharia and the history of Islam, you need to understand where they're coming from. They also, by the way, have this historical view that's not correct. Their history, they have history, and I say we have to rewrite their history for them because they don't get it. They think they won. The Ottoman Empire fell. The Caliphate was destroyed in after World War I. It was completely eviscerated. It was eviscerated before then, but by 1921, it was gone. The fact of the matter is, they're trying to reestablish it. The fight between Iran and ISIS, the Shia Iran and Sunni ISIS, frankly, is who gets to be the caliphate. So you got to destroy the caliphate. And that means, by the way, the Islamic Revolution of Iran, don't give them tens of billions of dollars so they can try to kill us and our allies, which is exactly what they're trying to do. Let's keep asking some questions. Hey, Wes, come on in here. I want to ask you about this attack.
Let's bring Wes in here. As he's coming in here, as a reminder, you buy a signed copy tonight, you get to submit a question and possibly have Jay answer it on the air. Keith from Michigan with a great comment. He says, I don't even have a question. Okay. I just want to thank you for fighting the good fight and being a person of morality, honesty, and integrity.
Thank you, Keith. That was very nice.
Welcome, Wes.
Wes is here. Wes is our senior military analyst. You see him on radio all the time and on our TV broadcast. Wes also was a colonel in the United States Army, was the chaplain as part of his service. But you talked, we had this thing today, Wes, as I'm signing this. We talked about this in the book, that ISIS will use anything they get their hands on. Al-Qaeda would have too, by the way, but they were hiding in caves. It was harder for them, actually.
Right.
ISIS operates more like Hamas and more like an army. In that context, we now know that there was a chemical attack. A lot of people asked me today, I did a ton of interviews, a lot of people were asking me today, hey, is our military prepared for that? What do they have? And you said it's called MOPS.
Yeah, the MOP gear, the Mission-Oriented Protective Posture Gear, and we always deploy with that. Luckily today, this shell landed about 300 yards from where our troops were, so they had time to get their protective mask and other gear on, and so there were no casualties. But yes, this afternoon, the Pentagon confirmed that it was sulfur mustard blister agent, which is a banned chemical weapon.
Yeah, so violates, of course, but they don't follow any treaties.
Right,
So that
there's a
doesn't
chemical weapons convention that most nations have signed on to.
ISIS isn't a nation, but trust me, they wouldn't sign on, and if they did, it's like Iran, it wouldn't matter.
Well, and Syria has not signed on, and they use it on their own people.
Yeah, right.
And then, of course, North Korea has not signed on.
But the people were concerned that our military, did they have the right gear? They did.
They do have the right gear. However, if the shell had landed closer to the troops, you don't really have time to put your gear on. Because you don't have a warning that that's the kind of artillery or rocket that's coming in. So they were fortunate in that today. But this chemical agent they used, it causes blisters and burns. It's called sulfur mustard blister agent.
And it can hurt the inside of the lungs.
Yes, when you breathe it in, it causes your lungs to blister, and it is lethal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, folks, they're playing for keeps. I mean, it's a real war. I mean, this is what it is. Hey, so here's what it is. You can go right now to buyunholyalliance.com, and that's where the special offer is for just ACLJ. If you're on this, you get the special offer. So you buy the book for $27, which is the regular retail, and then it's signed. So you get a limited edition signed. I'm signing it right here. Neatly, I might add. Signed print, and you're also going to get a second one for half price, and that will be signed as well. And I will tell you, I'm not going out doing book signings. So with everything else going on, it's just not feasible for me to do that. So this is the way to get a signed copy of the book. So again, buyunholyalliance.com. And Joseph's going to give me some more. Let's take another question.
Yeah. So Michael from California, we are in the final stretch of the election.
Yeah.
There are a lot of issues that are important that this book directly speaks to.
Right.
Michael asks an interesting one that combines a couple. He says, how would the appointment of conservative justices to the Supreme Court possibly affect us fighting the war against
That's,
jihadists?
Michael, that's a great question. And how it works is the Supreme Court has had a number of decisions already from the attacks after 9/11 and the engagements with the war and the enemy combatants. So the justices of the Supreme Court have a direct impact mostly on how we handle the individual combatant. So you got the Obama administration has taken the posture basically, hey, let's prosecute them through our civilian system. You go after them criminally, but through the civilian system, when in fact they need to be treated as enemy combatants. And the Supreme Court has made those decisions and will. So you ask me, is the Supreme, it's not getting a lot of attention right now because on everybody's mind is national security. But Wes, when you're in the military, how you treated one story I'd like you to talk for just a minute, and that is you had to deal with the imams in the area. Right. And they have that whole taqiyya system that they'll tell you, they'll be hospitable, they'll be kind, but then the next minute they could be the ones planning the IED.
Right. Yeah. Hospitality is a big cultural value there. And so they are always hospitable and very gracious. And yet we learned very quickly that you can't always take them at their word. And now even more so with the rise of terrorism, you definitely watch your back.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. Another question there, Joseph.
Yeah. Eric from California has a good question. A lot of people write about this issue, but one thing that I really appreciated that you did in this book was talk about solutions, things that everyday Americans can do. And Eric has a question from California. What hope do we have of preserving our country? Is it too late?
It's not too late, but we not only have to treat it. I mean, I've been very direct on this. We got to destroy the caliphate. I mean, just make it really clear. You got to destroy the caliphate. So ISIS operates differently, as I said, than Al-Qaeda, because Al-Qaeda was more hiding in caves. They would do horrible acts. I mean, in 9/11, they did horrible acts and other things around the globe. But they hid in caves. ISIS was an army on the march. Now, their land acquisition mode has changed. That hasn't been as successful, but they've still kept their major territories, and they are operating like a government. So you have to end the caliphate. And that may mean boots on the ground. I know nobody wants to hear that, but it may mean that. We've got to be, we got to be realistic here. So it's going to take a real concentrated military presence. You got to beat them. President Obama keeps talking about the narrative. We got to win the narrative. They're not listening to our narrative. We got to beat them militarily. And it can be, does anybody that's watching right now, and this is, as I said, this is a special presentation here. Does anybody believe right now that our military couldn't take out ISIS in months or weeks? Well, of course we can, but you got to have the will to do it, and that's what we talk about in the book. And I'm going to keep signing. So, again, this is the only way to get the signed copy of the book, and Joseph's going to tell you exactly how you can get it right now while I keep signing away. And then we'll ask more questions.
So go to buyunholyalliance.com. The first copy that you buy is the retail price, $26.99. But when you buy that, you can then buy another one for 50% off.
Yeah.
Not only do you get a limited edition, first edition, signed copy of the book. This is the only book signing he's doing, so this is your opportunity. But the proceeds tonight also go directly to the ACLJ, in addition to having the opportunity to ask a question. Here's another question. We've had a few questions from California. Let's go to the other coast, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Renee asks, what can be done to help more Christians in the Middle East to have sanctuaries established?
I think in-country aid we talk about this, regional in-country aid is important. And the Christian community, West, you and I have a friend, Andrew White, vicar of Baghdad, who's been at your churches where you preached, and he said it's basically the Christian community in these countries, and they're historic. They're as old as the church, are gone.
They are gone. Most Christians in Iraq, especially around the area of Nineveh, have had to flee if they have not been killed already. Yeah. And the interesting thing about that, Jay, is with all the refugees, some 10,000 or so that the administration has brought to America, something like 0.07% of them are Christians and Yazidis, and yet they are the ones who are losing their lives and their freedom. This is
the reality of what we're dealing with. You have Wes has a piece up, by the way, on how our enemies work together to challenge the United States, which is up on aclj.org. And give us a quick summary of that while I keep signing. And by the way, folks, again, you buy it tonight. This is the only way to get the signed copy. And if you buy one, you're going to get the second one half price, and they're both going to be signed. So this is the only book signing I'm doing on this. Wes, give a 2-minute version of your piece that's out. I think people want to hear it.
We have some very unreliable allies in our fight against ISIS, to name Iran and Russia, for starters. And of course, there is a lot of distraction going on. I think there's some blatant collaboration between Iran and Russia. And it seems like, just looking on the face of things, they're more interested in making sure Assad stays in power than they are in defeating ISIS. Out of all the bombing runs that Russia and Syria have made, only a half a dozen or so have been confirmed ISIS runs. The rest of them have been against the Syrian forces,
Yep.
many of whom we trained.
backed. I know.
You know,
This
and-
is the great dichotomy of all of this.
right.
You're going to come get some books from me. All right.
So
I'm signing away as quick as I can here. Hey, let me do this. I'm going to have, in a minute here, I'm going to have Harry Hutchison, our Director of Policy, come in and talk a little bit about the stubborn incompetence of the Obama administration. Folks, share this with your friends right now on Facebook. That's another way that they can buy the book as well. So we encourage you to do that. And Joseph, as we make the switch, and Harry's going to come in for a few minutes, is going to let you, and we're going to answer more questions. So share this with your friends right now. We get more people involved in the conversation.
Go to www.buyunholyalliance.com. You can do that now.
Did you just say www?
I did. The World Wide Web, Jay.
The world. Does anybody say www anymore?
You know,
You do.
I want to make sure they type it in correctly.
Okay, well, hopefully.
Walter,
I think it comes off automatically. All right, Walter, go ahead with your question.
Walter just bought a book. He
Thank
doesn't
you,
even
Walter.
have a question. He's from New Mexico. He said, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for all your work you do for this great nation. I'm buying to help support your cause. God
Thank
bless
you.
you and your whole organization.
We appreciate that, Walter, more than you know. That's great. Thank you, Walter. All right.
Mark from California
Yes, Mark.
is asking a question about what does it say about the worldview of President Obama and the Obama administration and some other leaders that makes it more difficult to defeat the enemies we face?
Well, and I'm going to let Harry address this because he has a piece up that's called The Return of Terror and Stubborn Incompetence for the Obama Administration. I'll give you my 2 cents right now as I continue to sign books for you here. This is, look, they had a narrative. They stuck with it for 8 years. It's been a disaster since it started. They were going to reshape the Middle East in their image. If that's their image is pretty bad, awful to say the least. And the incompetence of the administration, Harry, in a large part, has really created the problem here.
Absolutely. And I think the administration has been led down a dark hole because they've believed an illusion. They've believed the illusion that Islam is necessarily a religion of peace.
Yeah, that's,
And,
complete falsehood, obviously.
and as a consequence, they are willing to offer harsher rhetoric to their critics in the United States than to Islamic terrorists who are blowing us up in New York, New Jersey, stabbing us in Minnesota and other places.
Yep. All right, folks, we want you to be part of this conversation, and this is, you bought the book. We are answering your questions, so we're going to get right to them. What do we got next, Joseph?
This is a question that just
and I'm
came
signing
in
right here.
from Susan from Bakersfield, California.
Hey, Susan.
Just bought the book, submitted this question,
Great.
which is an important one and one very near to us that we've been working on for years. If Iran wants to wage war against America, what is President Obama's explanation for giving them billions of dollars and the freedom to expand their nuclear exploration? Did Congress approve his actions?
You know what I think this is? If you just cut through the bottom line here, President Obama knew they were going to have nuclear ambitions. He thought he was going to kind of reshape the world a little bit here in the Middle East. It did not work. He went down this path. It was a legacy issue for him. The end result of that legacy issue, I think, is we don't end up with much. And we've given the largest state sponsor of terror billions, with a B, billions of dollars. So you got to look at this alliance, folks. That's why we wrote this book. I mean, the cover tells a lot. Vladimir Putin from Russia, Rouhani from Iran, whispering in each other's ear, should have the whole world concerned. And we've allowed a nuclear Iran now, or a Iran with nuclear ambitions, and we've given them money to do it. The Russians want to encourage that because none of them like the West. And this is what you're dealing with. I mean, this is the reality of what we have right now. So again, share it with your friends. BuyUnholyAlliance.com. I'm going to continue to ask questions. I'm also monitoring the Facebook feed here, so folks, you can, those of you that bought books, ask a question if you bought a book. Go ahead, Joseph.
That raises a good point, and there's a lot of various questions from coast to coast asking about the specific title itself, about the Unholy Alliance. I know you go in depth in the book about the relationship between Iran and various jihadist organizations, Iran and Russia.
Yeah.
We do a deep dig throughout the book,
Absolutely,
talking about the Syrian civil war as an excellent case study.
Yeah, but you
in
got
how this Unholy Alliance plays
out.
out.
The biggest thing is that you got Shia Iran funding Sunni Hamas, and Harry, that's there was supposed to be the Great Divide, but they weren't. They hate Israel so much, and they hate the West so much, the United States, that for a time being, the Shia Islamic Republic of Iran will fund the Sunni Hamas.
Absolutely. And they are working with Russia, and these nations are essentially pushing against an open door because the administration is committed to meet terror with weakness and incompetence.
The
and it's unbelievable at times to see this continue.
By the way, when we're signing the book, so you know, I'm signing it, and these are numbered editions. So you see the plate there, and this one. I mean, we just kind of picked them randomly here. This one is whoever number 40 is. You're getting this book signed, and it's 40 out of the 3,000 is all we're doing on this, and it is a special price as well. As we mentioned, it is you buy it for the retail, which is $27, and the second one's half price, and they're both signed. So, and again, buy unholyalliance.com is where you can go. You can go there, buy the book now, and hop right back on here. We're going to be here for a little bit, so we encourage you to do it. Go ahead, Joseph. Next question.
Proceeds go to the ACLJ.
Yep, everything
as
from
well,
tonight. That's where it's going.
Which is
Yep.
pretty exciting.
Yep.
There's a question
Yep.
involving Verda from Louisiana. Says, thank you for your faithfulness.
Yep.
You've stayed on point. We appreciate all you do. There's also a good number of questions here asking, so we've read the book. We follow all you do. We support
Yep.
what you do. We know voting is important,
Sure.
but what else can everyday Americans do about these problems?
We've got to be educated and informed, because we have to. If you want to talk this, the president likes to talk about this term narrative. We got to beat the narrative here in the United States. I mean, there's a narrative being sold by the left, and that is everybody's in favor. You know, it's like right now even President Obama did it this week. He called Israel. You know, Israel should no longer occupy Palestinian territory. So what planet are you living in? Occupied Palestinian territory. First of all, a lot of it was mandated from after World War II, after the Holocaust. And then it was the Jordanians, the Syrians, and the Egyptians that attacked Israel. And guess what? They lost. And when you lose, sometimes you lose land. That's part of the deal. So this is a false narrative, if we want to use that word. But we have to get educated. I think the thing is here, we got to, in our own country, we have to be the smartest on this. In other words, nobody should be better than us at this issue of understanding the alliance between the Russians, the Iranians, and other jihadist groups, and that this alliance, and Russia wants warm water ports. I'm going to talk to Wes about that in a minute, but that's really what they want is warm water ports. I mean, but Iran also, Harry, allowed Russian jets to fly out of Iran headed towards Syria, which violates their own constitution, by the way, which also in the book, which no one is reading this part as far as before, because no one published it. We did. You want to read? You want to get scared? In the right way, you want to be informed, read the Islamic Republic of Iran's constitution, which we put in the book. So this is the first book that I know that's put it all in there in this context. So we encourage you to do that. And again, when you get the numbered copy, it's all in there.
Jay, I think we have a phone call.
Okay. Jonathan from Missouri. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Jay. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for writing that book.
Thank you for
I got a question.
buying it. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Can you find anything good to say about Putin or any defense of why he rules in the manner he does or anything for which to respect him?
Well, I mean, look, Vladimir Putin brought stability to Russia when they were after the Cold War, they were not very stable. And after Mikhail Gorbachev left, and you had the whole series of governments that were not stable. We have an office in Moscow. But they just passed, so everybody knows, a law that is the most restrictive law on religious freedom and religious liberty in anywhere in the world, other than the Islamic Republic of Iran and their allies. So I'm very concerned about Putin. He respects. I have this quote in here, actually. I'm going to read it because it's this was a culmination, by the way, of 3 years of research that we did at Oxford. And one of those years was actually the first year of the 3 years on this. I read all of Benjamin Disraeli's paper, and he talked about Russia because the English had to deal with Russia. So I'm going to substitute Russia, I'm going to substitute England in his quote and put in instead the United States. That's all I'm changing. This is Benjamin Disraeli in 1870s. Questions between Russia and the United States are not questions that can be settled by arbitration. They are questions in which power is involved, and power can only be met by power. Questions of this kind can only be settled by force. I do not necessarily mean by war. I mean diplomacy or war, because in my opinion, diplomacy is force without violence. In other words, you can arbitrate, you can negotiate when you've got power behind it. If you don't have power behind it and you're not projecting that, and that's exactly and precisely what we have right now, no one's going to respect you. Certainly not Vladimir Putin and the Russians, and certainly not the Islamic Republic of Iran. Harry, last thing here. Stubborn because people are asking about the Obama administration. We'll take some more calls, Joseph. The stubborn incompetence of the Obama administration. We're going to sum it up. What would you say?
Well, it's a continuing problem and a continuing mystery. And this week, the Associated Press noted that the Obama administration has given citizenship to 900 individuals who were scheduled for be deported.
I want everybody to hear this. 900 people that were going to be deported because they came from either countries of origin or they committed violations of the law. So they were going to be deported. Instead, because of a bureaucrat, the State Department granted them citizenship.
And these were citizens.
I mean, these
were individuals from high-risk countries.
Yeah.
And we granted them citizenship, and we have not as yet revoked
That's unreal.
The citizenship of these individuals.
All right.
Only 2 of those individuals are being prosecuted out of 858.
I was on our friend Sean Hannity's broadcast and we were talking about this, and I said, you know, in Stone Mountain, Georgia, if you have people listening from Georgia, got a lot of books for you to grab here. Thanks. For those of you at Stone Mountain, Georgia, know where Stone Mountain is. It's right outside of Atlanta. There are more refugees, and I use that in quotes because some of them may be legitimate, but it doesn't take many to be a problem. There are more refugees who were relocated to Stone Mountain, which is a town of 6,000 people, than Los Angeles, Greater Los Angeles, and New York combined. I mean, okay, this is called absurd. And then you have, of course, on top of this, the whole Department of the State Department, the FBI, Homeland Security saying, oh, we can't vet these people. So this is why in-region aid, I think, is the way to go on this. And I'm not anti-immigrant. My goodness, I'm the grandson of a Russian immigrant in the United States. So, I mean, I get immigration, but it's a serious thing. All right, next question here.
David from Omaha, Nebraska, from the Heartland. He talks about and references, so we had the attacks in New York and New Jersey this weekend, but we also had the stabbing attacks in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And he asks, Jay, are there laws preventing the FBI from calling these stabbings a terrorist act? What is keeping our government from putting the necessary pieces together?
All right, I'm going to give you my point of view, and then we usually call him Professor Hutchinson, but this is a really informal night. So Harry has been a law professor for decades, but I'm going to give you my view. The paradigm is upside down. We should be starting with the proposition. It should start with the proposition that if 2 bombs go off in New York and 8 people are stabbed in a mall and someone's screaming Allah Akbar, you probably should start with the proposition. Not probably. You should start with the proposition. This is an act of terror, probably foreign inspired or foreign led. That's how we should start. But instead, we do the exact opposite. We have de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, say these were intentional acts. No kidding. 2 bombs in New York City, pretty much guarantee you it's an act of terror. Even if it was domestic. But, of course, these had foreign influence. So the paradigm is completely upside down. I want to get Harry's comment in. I'm going to bring Wes back in for a military question. But, hey, folks, let me say this before Harry responds. BuyUnholyAlliance.com is the site. You can link to it right there from the Facebook page you're on or Periscope, and you can buy the book, and you're going to get 2 books, one full price, the second one half price, and they're both going to be signed.
Jay, you're exactly correct. Recently, a story just broke suggesting that over the last several years, the FBI has changed its training manual with respect to going after terrorists, essentially to excise references to Islam and to religion as a motivating force. And we know for a certainty that Islam, radical Islam, is an absolute motivating force. Rahami, the terrorist in New York and New Jersey,
acknowledged it.
He acknowledged his commitment to a radical view of Islam, but yet this administration continues to hamstring the FBI and its agents.
Yeah, we, by the way,
it's a huge problem.
Yeah, we have filed a Freedom of Information Act request on this issue of why they changed the training manuals to remove jihadist, radical Islamic terror. Why did they remove all of this? And so we're literally going to be in court on that one. I don't think we haven't filed that one yet. They're not going to respond to it, and we're going to be in federal court on that one, as we are in so many of these others. I'm going to continue signing away here, and we're going to take your calls. Share this with your friends right now, because we're going to be doing this for a few more minutes here, probably another 20 or 30 minutes. So we want to encourage you to do it. I'm going to keep signing. We need some more books, though. I'm signing away. I'm doing a pretty good job, I have to say. So do we have more for me to sign? I know we do.
We do have some more. I believe we are going to show a book trailer now.
Okay.
So those of you watching live,
it's a good time to share it.
Have a good idea. This is a perfect time.
Perfect time to share it, and perfect time to go to BuyUnholyAlliance.com. So let's go to the book trailer.
In his latest book, #1 New York Times bestselling author Jay Sekulow lays out the historic threat facing the United States, Israel, and the world. In Unholy Alliance, the agenda Iran, Russia, and jihadists share for conquering the world, Jay Sekulow breaks down the deadly threats we face and what must be done to defeat them.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So here's what we want you to do right now, because we're monitoring Facebook, of course, and Periscope. Here's what we like everybody to do on right now. 2 things. 1, share it right now with all your friends. You know how to do it. You swipe it, and there you go. Share it with all your friends. That's really important. That gets more people involved in the conversation tonight. This is a conversation. We're not doing on a radio broadcast. You're not going to see this on TV. We're answering your questions, people that have bought the book or are buying the book. So this is the only book signing I'm doing. Just the nature of everything going on right now, we've got a lot of work, and we want to get the book out to as many people as we can. We're also trying to get it on as many of the bestsellers lists as we can. That's part of what you do when you do this. So if you would share it right now with your friends, that will help. And then Joseph's going to let you know, I'm going to answer some more questions about how to buy the book as I continue to sign. And we've got stacks of them for me to sign, but it's a limited edition, numbered series. So there's only 3,000 of these, and I'm signing, and this is the only book signing I'm doing. So we encourage you to do that. And Joseph will let you know right now, and we'll ask a question.
BuyUnholyAlliance.com. Go there. You can order the book. First one, you buy one, you get the second 50% off.
Right. Both signed.
Extra
and proceeds are going
go to
to
the
ACLJ. Yep.
So this is a key opportunity.
Yep.
And we're in the final hours before the New York Times bestsellers list decision.
48 hours to go, basically, and we won't know. You don't know for about a week, so we're week or 10. But I will tell you this: it's shot up on a lot of the lists already, which we're encouraged with. Hey, Wes, you've got a piece out, and we've been talking about this, dealing with this whole Syria-Iran connection. Talk about that for a minute as I continue to sign. I think, and folks, share this with your friends. And Wes served in the Middle East; he understands this. In fact, we can't put the picture up because we don't have the capability to do that right now. But let me tell you something. You know the colonel that was in the shot with President Obama and Hillary Clinton when Ambassador Stevens' body was returned to the United States, the colonel that led that ceremony? We do have the picture?
We have it.
All right, we're going to put it up. Good job, guys. Right there in the middle, at the podium, that guy right there is this guy right here. So he knows exactly what, you should tell all your friends right now, because he knows exactly what Hillary Clinton told these families, because he was there. So you're not going to get this anyplace else. But Wes, go ahead and share for a minute.
Yeah, well, the thing about what's going on in Syria and the Middle East is that Russia and Iran in particular, ISIS actually as well, they exploit perceived weakness. And it's like the quote you reread from Disraeli. It's not just military weakness, it's weakness of the will. And if they sense any weakness, then they will push the envelope and exploit perceived weakness, whether or not we are actually weak.
Yep.
And we are actually projecting weakness. I venture to say, Jay, that had we been in a position of strength, ISIS probably would have thought twice before firing mustard gas at our troops earlier in the week.
No, I think you're right. Winston Churchill, and I said prophetically warned, unsuccessful interventions in the affairs of another country is generally agreed to be a mistake. Mm-hmm. So an unsuccessful intervention in the affairs of another country are a mistake. So if you're going to go in there, you know what you better do? Win. And we lay all of that out in this book. So again, I'm signing number 90 right now. I mean, we kind of got them at random here, but I'm going to continue to sign away. But let's take some more questions.
Just a reminder, go to buyunholyalliance.com right now to order these special edition signed copies.
Yep.
Another question, Susan from Arizona. She asks, what about and why is no one talking about our airport security crisis? The issues with TSA, the various investigations in which 95% of weapons have actually gone through.
Yeah. Because we don't profile. I mean, look, every crime's profiled. The Israelis have a good security record. You want to know why? I'll tell you a personal story. They profile. But they even profile people that shouldn't even fit a profile. So I was invited as a guest of the Israeli government, because we've done a lot of work for the state of Israel, as you know, doing some work right now for one of the cities in Israel. We do that all the time. I was invited on a special delegation. I had a letter from the Prime Minister of Israel, it was then Ariel Sharon, inviting me to go. I go to the Il Al counter. We're going through security, and I said, I've got a letter here from the Prime Minister. And you know what the Israeli security guy said? I don't care if you have a letter from King David. You're going to go, which is what we're going to do. He had a lot of questions to ask, and he asked it. He pulled one of our guys out and took him aside for 2 hours. So you profile. I mean, that's part of what you do in a situation like this. And we don't, that's like a bad word in the United States. It shouldn't be. I think we got a call coming in, too.
We do have a call from Irene from Massachusetts.
Hey, Irene.
Hi.
Hey.
So my question for you, Jay, would be, do you think that Trump has a good chance of winning in spite of all of the corruption that would stand against him?
So I don't think the corruption, because I think our elections generally are pretty fair. I mean, if you look at them, I mean, there are some abuses, but here's what it comes down to. Do I think Trump's going to win? I think Monday night's debate's going to be huge for both of these candidates. I mean, really big. Donald Trump clearly is on a trajectory right now that he wasn't on. And I've been, and you know this, you've watched this broadcast, you're on Facebook, I've been critical of both of them. I mean, we're not in anybody's pocket at all. I mean, people say you're so in the tank for Trump, or you're so, the same day I'll get, you're so in the tank for Hillary. He's not in the tank. I'm just giving you the facts. I'm a lawyer. I lay out the evidence. I think it's going to come down to a couple of key states. Clearly Florida, Ohio, Virginia, maybe Pennsylvania, North Carolina, where, by the way, pray for Charlotte, North Carolina. They've got a mess on their hands there. And when you look at all of that, it's going to depend. Irene, it really depends on the states. I mean, you're in Massachusetts, it's going to go for Hillary Clinton. But that doesn't mean don't vote, but because you got down ticket races too. But, the math favors the Democrats every single time. It's a question of whether can Trump move enough of the states over? And it's certainly, look, it's a lot closer than it was 3 weeks ago, and he's much more on script than he was 3 weeks ago. So short of a major gap, she has to have a really good night too, by the way. I mean, she's not getting her. Remember, the whole media would have been her. And the health thing and the not telling the truth about the pneumonia and all this nonsense. And the emails and Huma Abedin. And you want me to go, how would you like Huma Abedin whispering in the ear? Okay, there's one for you, of the President of the United States, whose mother, and she was on the masthead of a radical, basically jihadist magazine. Written nicer, but the same goal. Because generally the difference is patience. The less radical have a little bit more patience than the really radical. And that's really what you're dealing with. But the fact is, for a Republican to win, for a conservative to win, you got to run the table. Now, you lived in Georgia, and you still do live in Georgia a lot. You're in between Georgia and our media center. How does it look in Georgia, Wes? Because that's a state that they're now saying is a swing state. I don't buy that, but what do you think?
Yeah, Georgia's been red for a number of years, and they're saying it's really, really close. I would be really surprised if it went blue, but it's really uncertain, as it is in a number of the key states.
But you know what? Whoever the president is, this is our job. Our job is to be faithful and to do the task we've been called to do, and that doesn't matter who the president is. So our job goes on, whether it's President Obama, which it has been, whether it's President Bush when it was, whether it is President Clinton if it is, or President Trump if it is, we got to do our job. And, our job is to be faithful. And what we're doing tonight is trying to educate as many of you as we can. And that's why we worked out with our publisher and the ability to get this book to you. This is a special arrangement. So you're getting signed copies, which no one else is getting. These are numbered books. So this is number 64 of 3,000. And it's signed. And they buy one for the retail price of $27. Second one's half price. And you just go to buyunholyalliance.com. But again, we're going to stay here for a few more minutes. So share this with your friends. Go ahead, Joseph. Next question.
Buy one, get one 50% off. Suzanne.
I grew up in the retail business. My family's retailer, so I'm not afraid to say it. Buy one, get one 50% off. There you go.
Proceeds go to the ACLJ and our important work.
Yep.
Which a lot of you, I want to say thank you.
That's where it goes. Yep.
A lot of you who are buying these and then submitting questions aren't even submitting questions. You're thanking us for our work.
We appreciate
thanking
that.
us for keeping you apprised.
But you know what?
Of
We
the
couldn't
news.
do it without you. So the fact of the matter is, we need to thank you. You're thanking us. We appreciate it. We're thanking you because without you, we don't get to do it. And listen. I know that every single morning I wake up. Without you all, we don't get to do it. I mean, obviously, it's the Lord leading the whole thing. But at the end of the day, we thank you too. And that's why I'm glad we're able to do this with the book tonight. Yep.
Suzanne from
Yes.
Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
I know Broken Arrow, believe it or not.
Says, how can we get the left to hear this message?
Okay. Suzanne? Is that who it is? Suzanne? Suzanne, you've asked the question of questions, and this is the key part. And I'm going to have Wes comment on this too, but let me tell you, here's what it means. It's great that you all are buying the book tonight, and I appreciate that. And that's going to help us at the ACLJ. It's going to help us all the way around. That is great. So we want you to do that. But the way that you get this thing out to where it has to be reviewed is just with Rise of ISIS. It made the New York Times bestsellers. Listen, guess what? It's in every bookstore. It's advertised more on the websites. It's being reviewed in papers. academics start talking about it. I'm going to get Harry to come in a minute on that. But the fact is, this information, Wes, and you've been involved in this Middle East issue for a long time, we put it together so people, it's understandable, it's readable, but we want to get it out.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, if they don't really, follow the headlines and follow the details of the news, they don't realize we live in one of the most perilous times in our nation's history. We truly do.
Yep.
And there are indeed, as your book states, there are powers in other places of the world that do collude and who want nothing but to see the United States fail. And it's a perilous time. And the message is important. It's important that as many people as we can, that they have this message and share it with their friends, but also that they talk to their elected leaders about the threats that we face.
Yeah, and when you talk to the elected leader, it's great to be informed. Now, let me tell you what this is. This is 3 years of research at Oxford University over the course of 3 years, not 3 years straight, obviously. We were doing a lot of other things in between that. But 3 years of cumulative research. I mean, literally, I have a quote in here from T.E. Lawrence. That's, of course, Lawrence of Arabia, who was, by the way, pro-Arab and a Zionist, which was not unusual in his time. He makes a statement about Shia Islam. Now, I read the entire 7 Pillars of Wisdom, the entire tome. It was a couple thousand pages. And then I read all of his personal correspondence, which was at the Bodleian Library. So you kind of traced his whole development on this thing. This is Lawrence of Arabia. He talks about the Shia. You think we got a difficulty, folks? Let me read you what T.S. Lawrence says. This is what he said. He also said he observed that the Shia Mohammedans, that's what he called them, from Persia, Iran as we would say, were surly and fanatical, refusing to eat or drink with infidels, holding the Sunni as bad as the Christians, following only their own priests and notables. But underline this, holding the Sunni as bad as Christians. Yet today, those Persians, the Iranians, will fund the Sunnis to advance their goal, although they would ultimately like to really destroy the Sunnis.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's and you saw that firsthand.
I did, yeah. And it's a very troubled part of the world.
It is.
And even the good alliances are shaky, Jay, but we do not have a good alliance in this war.
That's the problem. Our ally in the region right now, I mean, it's such a bizarre time. You got Israel, Egypt, and Jordan, and the Saudis.
Yes.
And the Saudis, let me tell you, they're the Wahhabis, which are in here as well.
We talk about that.
Yeah,
Right.
not so good at all. I mean, that's an understatement. Horrible. Look, most of the 9/11 attackers came from the terrorists, came from Saudi Arabia. So they smile at us with one hand, and then are stabbing us in another. And this is just the nature of what you're in dealing with the Middle East. You have to think 9-dimensionally. Yes. And that's part of what we're going to do. All right, I'm going to bring Harry back in a minute. We'll probably get Wes back in a few minutes again, but let's go ahead and answer some questions here.
On that front, Jay, one of the things
by the way, number 83, I'm signing your book. All right, here we go.
One of the things I loved that you really did in this book was digging into all of these various parts of the Islamic world.
Yeah, because you can't just paint it with this is radical jihadists. And what does that mean? Because there are clearly, I mean, really clearly, very different strands of Islam, none of which are particularly helpful. I mean, there is a reform movement within Islam, but honestly, it's very small. It's a very small movement. And we need more of those than we have, frankly. And the fact is, and I think this is the critical part, you have to understand these various strains, what they believe. I mean, they really do want to see the end of the world. Why? They believe that's when the Mahdi's coming. That's their version of the Messiah. So they're going to rein it in. That's why these people, they're not afraid to die. I mean, you're not winning the war. I was in a meeting on Monday with James Wolsey, former, of course, CIA National Security Advisor, Don Rumsfeld, and Ray Kelly, who was the former New York Police Commissioner. And Harry, you would appreciate this. And they were giving their kind of analysis of not only what was happening, but kind of what we're dealing with and how it's morphed since 9/11 into a much more, of course, 9/11 was still the biggest mass casualty moment, but the lethality capabilities over the last 15 years and we're using social media. The problem is they use the social media as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the big issues that we have to think about as a nation is the fact that the radical Islamic jihadis, they look at life from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
In other words, they are pursuing a particular destination. American leaders, they look at life as if they were simply tourists.
Yeah.
And the consequence is the radical Islamic jihadists, they are willing not only to shed blood, but they are willing to give their life for a particular purpose.
So, yeah.
And that seems to be missing in the debate that we're having in the United States.
Yeah, Don Rumsfeld, 84 years old now, said this. He said, don't call them cowards. They're not cowards. They're willing to take airplanes, fly them into buildings, and die. They're not cowards. So saying it's a cowardly act, well, I mean, I understand that in the metaphysical sense, but in the reality sense, no, they're not cowards. They're evil. And we have to understand the nature of that evil. I mean, that's part of what we did. That's why, again, this is a culmination of 3 years worth of research that we did at Oxford University and back here as well. I mean, we've dug into this. This is well documented. You will be, when you buy this book and read it, you will be the expert on this issue. And again, you go to buyunholyalliance.com. You go there right now. You can buy the book. You get the second one half price. I'm going to keep signing for a few more minutes here. Let's go ahead. And what do we have next, Joseph?
Cynthia from San Marcos, Texas.
Hey, Cynthia. Thank you for buying the book, first of all, Cynthia.
Says, Jay, I already ordered my copy. Now,
Thanks.
This one is for my 85-year-old dad.
Great.
Which is awesome, because that's a perfect example. So many people are asking, what can regular people do? You can buy one, get another 50% off, and give it to a friend. Give it to a friend that agrees with us politically. Give it to one that disagrees.
Look, especially give it to the ones that disagree.
Right.
Because you know what they're not going to be able to refute? The evidence. Harry's a law professor. I've been practicing law for 36 years. I've done a lot of cases at the Supreme Court, a lot of cases in other courts. We don't just put out, here's our opinion. This is documented. So when you challenge someone on this, they're not going to have, this is your handbook on this unholy alliance between Russia, Iran, and radical jihad. And this is your handbook. This is your education mode. And I want to encourage you to get it and share it. Read it. We wrote it so you can read it. It's not written like an Oxford treatise. It's not written like a law review article. It's written so you can read it. But we do back it up with real data. Can I do a little sneak peek here since this is...
Go for it.
All right. So, look, folks. Read the footnotes. Because we quote them being the jihadists. We quote from their materials extensively. Nothing in here is not quoted. Then we have appendices, including the definitions of what they mean. We have the Islamic Republic of Iran's constitution, which you need to read to understand. And as I said, we have footnoted everything in here so that you understand. The footnotes talk about what happened in Egypt in great detail. So again, you're going to get, this is the only, I'm not doing any book signings in bookstores. We've got a lot going on. So we decided to do it this way. We were able to speak to thousands of you tonight and more over the night as this replays. But I want to encourage you again. We're going to keep answering questions.
Yeah, Karen from Michigan. This is a great question, especially with Harry in here, is how do we get justice against such a corrupt and inept Obama administration?
Well, they're done. Okay, it's coming to an end. We are in that's why impeachment, forget it. We've got the most dangerous 72 days of that administration, by the way, though, will be between the day that the new president is elected by the general population and sworn in. So after the election, the next day till the end, because the executive actions, executive orders are going to be flying through. We've got a unit set up within the ACLJ. It's our oversight. We have our own version of an oversight committee. And we're just going to be on these and file lawsuits and stop them every time we need to. And vigilance here, though, Harry, is the key. I mean, that's what you would tell a student. That's what we need to tell our audience.
Absolutely. So I think each individual American should work both individually and collectively to pursue justice, to pursue truth. But I think fundamentally right now, and this is my hope, that we get a new attorney general. Because right now...
You're not so happy with the one we got?
Well, we have an attorney general who's committed to love and peace to fight terror.
She actually said that. I mean, we went down to Orlando after 49 Americans were killed in that nightclub. 49 Americans were killed, and she said, we defeat terrorism with love and what was it? Love and peace. Love and peace. Yeah. Okay, that's great if you like 1967, The Magical Mystery Tour. But or Sgt. Pepper's. But you know what? It doesn't work after the jihadist. And I'm a big Beatle fan, but I will tell you that, love and peace, great. And I want peace. Pray for peace. But we got to pray with your eyes open. How about that one? Pray with your eyes open.
We should absolutely pray for peace, but we should also encourage, particularly law enforcement officers, to make sure that they come to the scene of a terrorist event and they come well armed.
Absolutely.
Because that was what was necessary to take down Rahami.
Yep.
That was what was necessary to take down the Somali knifer in Minnesota.
Yep, absolutely.
And so we also need government officials who are going to support law enforcement officers who are going to act directly and forthrightly.
And I believe this is going to come up in the debates on Monday night. We'll give you that analysis on radio on Tuesday, but I believe that's coming up Monday night. All right, we're going to be on for a few more minutes here. We got a call coming in we're going to take. But again, buyunholyalliance.com is where you can buy the book right now. We encourage you to click on there and buy it. And like I said, this is very special. We're only doing these signed editions. Let's take the call.
We have Linda on the line from Crawford, Nebraska.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Jay. I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate that you include some solutions, not just chest beating as we hear from so many other people. I wanted to ask you
Sure.
What we as individuals or the United States in general can do to try and put a wedge between Putin and this imams.
Yeah.
It's just very, very disturbing, both diplomatically and spiritually.
Yeah,
great question.
No, Linda, that's a great question. So what we've got to do is, and I think what Disraeli said is right, and that is we've got to be able to project strength. Let me get Weston to talk about this for a minute. But part of that is projecting strength militarily, and we're just not right now. And I think, Linda, that when you don't project strength, you can talk about negotiating. You're negotiating with such weakness. By the way, I'm not saying let's go to war tomorrow morning against the Russians. I don't believe that. But what are we going to do? What are we going to do if they continue aggressive expansions into NATO territories?
Right. Wes is coming in right now.
I mean, they go into a NATO country, and that NATO country selects Article 5 of the NATO Accords. Mm-hmm. Wes, you're colonel in the United States Army, retired. And they do that, and they say, hey, we're a NATO member, and we're being invaded by the Russians. What's our obligation?
Our obligation is to act like it was an attack on us.
Exactly.
You mentioned a little bit ago the critical period between November the 8th and Inauguration Day. Yeah. That is also a critical period when our adversaries sometimes try to take advantage of the transition. It was during the transition in 2008 that Russia invaded Georgia. Right. And right now, there are over 100,000 Russian troops on the border with Ukraine. And there are a lot of military analysts who are thinking that might be what happens next.
All right, number 86, whoever you are out there, which we appreciate you buying the book. I'm signing it for you right now. All right.
Buyunholyalliance.com. We've got a few more minutes of our book signing. Again, this is your opportunity to get a signed edition.
This is the only book signing. I mean, literally, folks, we're not going to the bookstore signing. We just can't because we've got a lot of legal work. We're filing we're going to file a motion to dismiss in that case representing that foundation, that town in Israel, that's the city basically, Gush Etzion. We're going to file that October 6th. So you can imagine between now and October 6th, what I will not be doing is going to bookstores. I just can't. And you'd rather have us in court doing our job, but part of our job is to educate, and that's what we're doing tonight. So this is your way to get a signed copy of this book. So this is number 68 of the limited edition. And again, let me show you what it looks like. So inside it, there's a nice plate, and it's numbered. So these are not available anyplace else. And there it is. I'm literally signing for you right here. So we encourage you to do it. It is buyunholyalliance.com, and you can buy one, and then you get the other one for half price. So we encourage that. Let's keep answering some questions here.
John H. from Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Hey, John.
I knew a guy named John from Bartlesville once.
You know, we got a lot of people from the Midwest calling and asking questions, which is a good sign.
The heartland of America. It's a great place. Yeah. I do like saying
All right, go ahead.
His question is about Israel.
Yes.
And he says, this book discusses the unholy alliance between Iran, Russia, and the jihadists, all who have Israel as an enemy. What can we do? What should we be doing to protect Israel, our ally in the Middle East, against this threat? This is from John.
All right. Hey, John, let me tell you what. Let me give you a sneak preview here. Okay. We haven't discussed. This is the only time I'm not going to say this now. Book 3 in this series. So the first one was Rise of ISIS. The second one is this one, Unholy Alliance. The third book is going to be just on Israel. Historically, biblically, theologically, and under international accords. The case for Israel, basically. But we talk about it in here because you can't. How can you talk about this region without talking about Israel? But understand this: they view Israel as the little Satan. The United States is the great Satan, and that's kind of Wes. That's kind of the mindset. I mean, we understand
is the mindset.
They're just Israel's in the way. That's how they view it. They want to export the revolution right here to the United States. They want Sharia in the United States. They will say it's compatible with the Constitution because they know you can amend the Constitution.
Yeah, and they see Israel as an enemy, just like they do us.
Oh, sure,
and so
but just much smaller. Right.
They push for the annihilation of the state of Israel.
Absolutely.
And the imposition of Sharia law in the United States.
All right, I'm going to ask you. We're going to do a few more questions here in the last 5 minutes we got. You can share this with your friends. So right now, folks, this will be it. I just signed number 74 for somebody. There you go. Yeah, I noticed, Joseph, you're not giving to me. They're not in a numerical order. I've gone from 140 to 74 to 182.
They're all over the place.
All over the place.
Joe,
just like this administration. Go ahead.
Joe from Troy, New York says,
there we go, a New Yorker. All right. Joe.
Says, Jay, is it going to take more than just a U.S. administration change to make the world safer and more stable? What else can Americans like myself do to help?
Okay, well, that is a great question, and yes, it's going to take more than the United States. But I need to say this. I said this at a speech yesterday in outside of Chicago. Here's the deal. You may not like me saying this, but we'd call it straight. We are the policemen of the world. I mean, that's just what we are. We're the United States of America.
Right.
That's the deal. You get to live here. We got to make sure we do our job. Part of that job is ensuring. I mean, some people, we're getting involved. But it's for our own security. Understand this. We support Israel not because we just love the Jewish state, although biblically that's clear, but we do it for our own geopolitical interests, Wes. I mean, that's part of what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And it does take an alliance. They have alliance. It's called an unholy alliance. We need a different alliance, very different than what they have. Yeah.
If we don't stand up and lead, chaos fills that vacuum.
Yes, and it has.
And we may not like being the policeman of the world. And I think there's a difference between defending democracy and freedom and fighting terrorists and nation building. People who legitimately say, hey, we shouldn't be nation building. But this is not about nation building. This is about defending our way of life from a very real and imminent threat.
Yep. So here's what we're going to do, folks. We got about 3 minutes left. I want to answer 3 minutes worth of questions, and then I'm going to ask you to do something at the end of this broadcast, the really special broadcast. Ask you to do something to really help us out because we're in the 48-hour run to the end here, so to speak, for this book. But go ahead, Joseph. What do you got next?
There's an excellent question involving from Michael from Minnesota saying, why are Iran and Russia working together, including sometimes with jihadists, when in other parts of the world, and you talk all about this in the book, when in other parts of the world, Russia is fighting against a jihadist group, but they're supporting them in another part of the world.
The Russians have been attacked by Islamic terrorists, and their schools have been taken over, kids have been killed. So it's a fantastic question. Here's why. It's a geopolitical thing. They want to make sure that Syria stays exactly as it is. They get a warm water port. Who do you think's selling the weaponry to Iran? The Russians, which in this deal that the president did, that's allowed. So they're going to have their own form of a shield, a missile shield, funded by the Russians. Now look at the end of it. Would the Russians and the Iranians get along? No, they would not be whispering each other and be knifing each other in the back. But they will use their alliance right now to advance their goal. For the Iranians, it's exporting the Islamic Revolution. For the Russians, it's the end of the influence of the West worldwide. So it's both of them have a multidimensional dynamic involved with a dominion philosophy, and the Russians are using the Iranians.
Yes, they are.
And the Iranians are using the Russians.
Yeah, they're very opportunistic in this regard.
Yep. So, folks, that's going to. Can I squeeze in one more question? Do we have one more question?
I think we got one more question.
All right.
Jeannie from Meridian, Mississippi says, I've been watching, contributing, and praying for you.
Thank you.
I've seen you on CBN today.
Yes.
Proud of you. But ask an excellent question. She says, if I understand our Constitution correctly, our Supreme Court has overstepped its bounds. Our executive branch has overstepped its bounds.
Yep.
What can our members of Congress do to speak up and change this?
Well, look, we have Dan Bennett, our Director of Government Affairs, has talked about this often. When you have these congressional oversight hearings, these aren't by accident and they're not unintentional. They're very intentional and they have results. Look, here's what you do. The IRS violates its obligations under their own laws. Sue them and win, which we just did. Literally a month ago, we got the decision, not even, that we won the case against the IRS for their targeting. So what you have to do is take them to court. Now, if the Supreme Court makes a decision, that's a little bit different because that's it. But now, how do you change that? Who selects the Supreme Court justices makes a difference. It's the lasting legacy of the president. Normally in an election, and you guys know this, in an election, the presidency, the Supreme Court's a big topic. It has not been in this one.
Right.
And with the vacancy, normally we're talking about this. This is kind of a hyperbole. Let me get Harry to come in here for a minute on this one because I'll ask the kind of last question. Thanks, Wes. I'm going to go from the military to the legal. We got another minute or two here. I'm going to sign a couple more of these. Here's the thing. Normally, the Supreme Court vacancy is something that might happen. There may be a Supreme Court vacancy. The election of the president's going to select this is the lasting legacy. Here you have a Supreme Court vacancy. There is one, and it's replacing an important seat. It's the seat of the late, great Justice Antonin Scalia. So the fact is, we've got a vacancy. There will probably be more. And when the caller, the person that wrote that, that's a great question, and I really appreciate it. Because when the Supreme Court makes the decision, that's where you are.
You're absolutely stuck.
I mean, that's it.
And there are
You can amend the Constitution,
a
but that's a
variety of
difficult
issues,
task.
including an issue that Donald Trump just raised about policing, stop and frisk.
Yeah.
Well, that will depend on
Exactly.
the Supreme Court. The composition of the Supreme Court is absolutely crucial. It's undeniable. And every voter out there should be concerned about it.
Absolutely. And it makes a difference. So here's what we want you to do. I've been signing away. I'm going to continue to sign when we're done. But what we need you to do is help us right now. Most of you have asked, what can we do to make a difference here? We've got to get educated. We need to be the experts. You need to be the experts on this. We have taken literally thousands and thousands of pages of research. I mean, thousands of pages of research. I alone read, probably in preparation for this book, no less than 10,000 pages of material. We've condensed it to 310 pages, readable, so you understand exactly what we're facing and exactly what we're up against. And what we're going to ask you to do, we're going to give you, and I'm going to show it to you right here. This is the signed copy. These are the only signed copies we're doing. I'm not doing any book tour. I can't do it, don't have the time. But we are signing it tonight. So we did a virtual book tour, if you will, tonight. And Joseph's going to let you know right now where you can go to buy it. Let me encourage you to do that. You're going to help us. Share it. You get two. So you buy one full price, get the second one half price. Share it with a friend. Give it to a friend. Give it to your library. But give it to someone who politically disagrees with you, because they're not going to be able to refute the evidence we lay out in this book. This is the case of the Unholy Alliance, and we lay it out very clearly what it means, and not just without hope. We have hope. We will look. Here's one thing I say. I keep quoting from the beginning of the book. I say this a lot when I speak. I'm going to say it to you here. This is how I end the book. In this volume, I discuss and analyze the history and suggest the path of engagement to end what is the latest in a history-spanning line of attempts to export Sharia law and radical jihad around the world. We will win. We must win. We have no option. We have no option. We have to do this. And part of that is us being able to get this book to you and educating you. Joseph's going to let you know right now what you can do to get this book. Let me encourage you to do it. I'm going to keep signing away.
Buy unholyalliance.com. You can get one and get a second 50% off to give to a friend, family member, someone that agrees with us, someone that doesn't agree with us.
Right.
That's key. That opportunity keeps going tonight. The reason we had this event tonight was so everyone across the entire country would have an opportunity to have a signed book at a book signing.
Yep.
We're going to continue this deal after tonight because we have a few more hours,
so
a couple more days.
Yeah, we've got we're at kind of the 48-hour moment here of how these books end up going. And what Joseph just said is absolutely right. So this is the only book signing I'm doing. And understand, it's not because it's not an ego thing. We've got a lot going on, and I've got a major response in a major case due October 6th. So it's a time issue, folks. But we're able to do this virtually. We were able to work out with our publishers and our friends at Premier Books that you're able to get a signed copy of the book without going to your bookstore in this particular case. You buy one, you're getting a second one at half price, and they're both signed. So you do it at buyunholyalliance.com. Have a great night. Share this with your friends, and we appreciate your support on this. Makes a huge difference. Good night, everybody. Paris, San Bernardino, Brussels, Orlando, Istanbul. In the past year, jihadists have shaken the world time and time again with devastating terrorist attacks and hundreds of lost lives. As terrorist attacks continue to increase at an alarming rate, we're left asking many questions. Why do they hate us? What are they trying to accomplish? What does all this mean? In my latest book, Unholy Alliance, I take a look at the increasing threat from jihadists who have one goal: complete world domination. I look back at the historical and theological roots of radical Islam and Sharia law, how the movement grew anew out of the 1979 Islamic Iranian Revolution and expanded to terrorist cells and would-be caliphate, leaving tens of thousands dead in its wake. Today, a new unholy alliance of Iranians, Russians, and jihadists is waging a war against the United States and the Western way of life. If we are to survive this increasing threat, we must act now.
In Unholy Alliance, the agenda Iran, Russia, and jihadists share for conquering the world, #1 New York Times bestselling author Sekulow breaks down the deadly threats we face and what must be done to defeat them.